wanting to look at Clause 12, Section 233A, which is where there is the detail around cancellation of main benefit for continuing failure to comply. I wanted to ask the Minister if she was presented with any new evidence that showed that the measures in this particular subclause, that they would be effective in any way with regards to not only compliance but also supporting those who are on benefit to go into employment. Ultimately, Madam Chair, it's important to refer back to that because the objective of this bill is supposed to be to support New Zealanders into employment. The evidence that I previously seen certainly is clear about the fact that sanctions are not a tool that should be considered effective for the purpose of supporting people onto employment. So I'd like the Minister to let us know if she's been presented with any new credible evidence that would support the section to stand as it is. Because of the concerns that I have with the section, with the way in which the sanctions will be applied, I also wanted to put to the Minister whether or not the operational instruction has changed. In the past, it was always the case that sanctions should be applied as a last resort as opposed to something that is willy-nilly dealt out to clients on benefit, given the very serious implications for the individual receiving the benefit, particularly if that beneficiary has children or minors in their care. Madam Speaker, I am, because of the concern that I have with this section and the implications for people who would already be deemed vulnerable, I have suggested, or actually my colleague, the Honourable Willie Jackson, he hopes to be a minister again soon, where there is that we would, in Clause 12, Section 2338, after Subclause 3, insert that MSD must not cancel a person's main benefit unless adequate support systems are in place to support client compliance, or without considering an evaluation on the impact of sanctions on the client and their family, or there is a risk of the client being homeless as a result of any cancellation, or if any assessment concludes that the sanction is overly punitive. Now, on top of wanting to know from the Minister if she received any new advice that states that sanctions will support New Zealanders or beneficiaries into work, I do want to know whether there was any advice about whether this particular section could lead to increasing homelessness of those that are on benefit. They are already receiving very low levels of income through the welfare system. Many of them are paying upwards of 50% for the accommodation that they're living in. If they are to lose half or part or full part, or full benefit, then common sense has to prevail, and their ability to retain and maintain accommodation would be compromised. I'm concerned about this because, of course, we've seen this with the barriers and the blockage to New Zealanders who require emergency housing being put in place, with the increase in homelessness being seen across the country. And our providers, our social service providers, are very clear that that homelessness increase has come about as a direct result in the policy change to accessing emergency housing. So I want to know whether this section is going to result in increased homelessness, and whether or not the Minister has received any advice from her officials to suggest that that may be the case. Going back to the first question, it was around whether or not operational practices changed. In the past, sanctions were applied as a last resort. The increased emphasis on sanctions makes me wonder whether or not that operational instruction or operational way of implementing the policy has changed. So if the Minister could respond to those questions, that would be great.
Honourable Minister.
Yes, the previous government had a directive that sanctions should be used sparingly. That's not the view of this government. The view of this government is that there is the balancing of rights and responsibilities between those who are receiving benefits and actually for taxpayers who are funding it. And so we do very clearly with the traffic light system is all about ensuring that, and actually 98% are at green, which is fantastic news. They know what their obligations are, they know what the steps are that will improve their chance of finding a job. I'll repeat, there is no sanction if you can't find a job. It's just taking the steps necessary to improve your chances. So the 13-week cancellation, I would reiterate, is for a person's, if they fail to recomply, and this would be a very rare occurrence where someone continues to ignore their responsibilities with all assistance that's available through MSD at the moment, and there's incredible support that's provided by frontline staff. At the end of the day, if people don't engage and don't comply with their obligations, there has to be a consequence, and our government believes in consequences.
Well, it's great when you say you believe in consequences, but what about, it's not consequence now, ask questions later. You've got to make sure that the consequence is justified. When you have an emphasis on sanctions, you're green-lighting, punish now, punish now, punish now. But unless you actually get the reasons why, a person when they go, I got punished, but I did the right thing, so I should be turning down jobs because I got punished for going to a job interview. Like, when you send mixed messages, people sit there and do that. You can keep saying, consequences galore. There's got to be consequences. Consequences should only exist when you do something wrong. If you keep rabbiting on about consequences, maybe I should sit down there and, I'm self-appointed Judge Sam Summers, and I sentence Christopher Luxon to life imprisonment without parole because I think he committed treason. Or something like that. Consequences. No, Judge, no, prosecutors, you don't need to sit there and show treason. I decided that it is in there. We can't keep having this emphasis on there must be consequences. Because when you emphasise, should we sit there and say every car that goes past the speed camera now on a gorge tomorrow, issue them a ticket for doing 20 kilometres over the speed limit, regardless of the speed they go when they pass it. Maybe between 7 and 9 a.m. in the morning, every southbound car gets issued a ticket for doing 20 k's over the speed limit when they're stuck in second gear and not moving. Is that the type of consequences we need to give? Because that's when I hear consequences, I hear punishment, 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 but not finding the cause to justify the punishment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it leads into the next question. Is it ethical to sanction people who are failing to attend appointments due to something like lack of transport? Is it ethical to apply the community work experience sanction in those circumstances? Because the likelihood of them being able to commit to that, and keep in mind there is no maximum amount of time per week that person has to do volunteer work. There's minimum, which is 5 hours, so that could be exploited. But again, she goes, oh well, taxpayers pay for this. Well, hey Louise, I've got a question. What about the taxpayers who lost their jobs due to government decisions and who paid into having a safety net that is compassionate? Again, I go back to the Citizens Advice Bureau's submission, and I'm going to quote them. Well, I'm not going to quote them, but I'm going to give a summary of what they said. Concerns with the bill's proposed introduction of a money management system where 50% of the person's benefit is placed onto an MSD payment card. So they stated that many of their clients on low incomes and benefits pay more than 50% of their incomes on rent. Now, we see this in the data. I saw this in the Select Committee report, that those currently on job seekers benefits spend about 52% on their income of housing. And I quote the Citizens Advice Bureau, this sanction risks people not being able to pay their rent and becoming homeless. I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
And how are they going to meet their obligations if they're homeless and got no transport? Exactly. You're not making it easier for people to.
I do like what
to meet their obligations.
On there. Yes, it is one of the highest ones for speeding, but I doubt when the traffic's at a standstill, it's issuing out tickets such as between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning. But that's what my point is. Why don't we use that as an example? Just dish it out. Actually, it'll be interesting to actually find out when the speed limit drops down to 60. I wonder if it's issuing out speeding tickets between 60 and 80 k's. That would be quite interesting, actually. But yes, no, Narrowing Gorge is quite a high revenue gathering speed camera. That is so true. I mean, I go past it. Oh, and I can tell you right now, any of the speed cameras in Wellington, none of them I've received speeding tickets on. So, I must be doing something right. Yeah.